what should the American people be doing? Going to the Congress or speaking up or using their platforms? What should American people be doing if they're concerned about this stuff?
I mean, I think they really need to engage. The thing is, especially if we talk about Al-Qaeda has, it's just not a U.S. homeland attack, right? They want to do so much bigger. They want to do an Islamic caliphate. Like one of the things that they're really focused on, and this is personal to me, right? I served in Benghazi, is they want to push the U.S. out of certain locations, right? So there are a lot of threats just against our embassy facilities, our military facilities. So if we just talk about in the last 2 years, every basically embassy or consulate attack I've heard of, this is all just Al-Qaeda, a planned attack on the U.S. consulate in Karachi, a planned attack on the U.S. consulate in Riyadh and the British embassy in Riyadh, a planned attack on the U.S. consulate in Jeddah, the British consulate in Jeddah, a planned attack on the Israeli embassy in the UAE. There's a potential attack on the U.S. embassy in Bamako, Mali. And then there's a current Al-Qaeda and Hezbollah plot in Beirut, Lebanon, which is believed to be against our U.S. embassy assets in some way. Not to mention, right, we just had the failed Houthi attack on a U.S. embassy branch in Tel Aviv. And last month we had that weird ISIS shooting attack outside of our U.S. embassy in Beirut, right? This is an insane escalation just on the threats against our diplomatic community, not to mention what we're seeing in Iraq and Syria, which hardly is ever reported on. So there's Americans in real danger, not just in our homeland, but they're serving overseas to protect you, right? You need to be a voice for them here, especially with your representatives.
That just leads me to ask this. What do you think? Why do you think the mainstream media doesn't report on these things?
I think they're influenced, right? Mm-hmm. They get political talking points. We joked about the border Caesar. They all read the exact thing, right? She was never appointed that, right? They are basically paid to influence, right? I mean, even if we just talk about Anderson Cooper, right? He makes 20 million? You don't make 20 million to read the news. You make it because you're a good influencer, right? You know, George Stephanopoulos. They're good at impacting you and influencing you. And that, unfortunately, is what the media is now. It's to get you to believe a certain way, to do a certain thing, and to react a certain way. Yeah.
Objective journalism's pretty much going on mainstream media.
Oh, yeah. And especially investigative journalism, it's gone.
Yeah. So where can Americans go to get this actual truth that you're saying here, reporting?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the best things is podcasts. Yeah. And then what I always give people as a really good example is you always go to the closest reporting source of any incident, right? So if there's a terrorist attack in Paris, right? Don't read it in the NBC News in the United States. Go find the Paris newspaper, even if you have to hit the translate, and read it there, because it's going to be more accurate because it hasn't gone through the filters of what they want you to hear, how it needs to be projected in the United States. A really good example, like I just said, so the U.S. Embassy in Beirut attack, it happened last month, right? I mean, do you know the name of the attacker?
No.
Right. His name's Case Farage. I would not find any American who knows his name. And the really interesting thing is he came to Lebanon as a Syrian refugee. His parents actually got paperwork for the UN, right? So there's this downplaying of his refugee status because it's obviously a hot issue in Lebanon, and it's a hot issue here. Even within the days after the attacks, the U.S. Embassy statement wasn't focused on potential ISIS lone wolf or whatever the attack was. It was don't take this out on the refugee community, right? So even just in terrorist attacks, we get influenced, right? And we try to teach people that because we learned it from our Benghazi attacks.
That's good instruction from a CIA analyst, because that's how you would do it at work, right? You go to closest source. Local papers, local journalists, eyewitnesses, that's...
Well, I mean, I think one of the things I want to bring up really quick about Afghanistan, because we always talk, I feel like people keep saying the same things about Afghanistan, right? It's like people talk about what they've known for 5, 10, or 20 years, and we're not exactly talking about the current thing, right? My count right now for Al-Qaeda and affiliated training camps is 42 camps, right? I mean, maybe they had 5 in 2000, right? People aren't comparing the differences. The other thing is for the last 2 years, Al-Qaeda's gotten their weapons of mass destruction program operational. Like they're testing, right? No one's talking. In Afghanistan, the CBRN program is running, right? Where in our press is that being discussed, right?
Because so they have 42 training camps. They're testing weapons of mass, and we're giving them money to counter that. But it's growing.
Yeah, they got a Chem Bio program. No one's talking about. So I feel like people need to get with the times, right? Yeah. You need to figure out what Al-Qaeda is doing today, discuss Al-Qaeda as the threat they are today, and then do something about the threat that they are today.